Well, I probably know less about this than anybody here, but to me, the audience is anyone who's interested in the topic. And with almost anything I read, or with lots of things that I read, I know I'm not going to understand the terms. I'm constantly Googling this and Googling that, and and trying to figure out if it's not an area that I specialize in, then I'm not going to know all the terms. I'm going to have to look things up. I do that when, maybe should be embarrassing to me, but it's not. I often do that when I'm reading an article in 3Cs, or in college English, I'm looking up terms. I'm always looking up terms.
Kind of like the go-between. And if we think about kind of if we think of Banks as a digital griot himself, right, what he's doing in this text is functioning as a digital griot. In many ways, I think then what happens is that this text then becomes like Papa Legba, that interpreter, right, the intermediary between cultures that may in fact not really be on the same page, and he's in some way attempting to connect them or to help them interpret one another.
So am I an outsider? But am I an outsider based on culture or race or both? So I found that very interesting, because I think some people in here actually would pull from the text more than I would, but the assumption is I would because I'm black, and that's not the case at all. For instance, about Obama, the difference between Obama and Jameis Winston, right? Obama is like he's getting given dap and swag, and Jameis is being called ignorant baboon from the low lights of the world, right? Because of the way that the different but both using African American vernacular English, and so that either way it should not be a judgment on someone's intelligence.
But maybe what we're talking about then has to do with communities, because all communities, or maybe that's too general too, but it seems to me that communities, for the most part, also consist of people who come together with different ideas or different ways of approaching whatever the purposes are at that given moment.
Something like, the black community tends to do this. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anybody remember that. Yeah, but I do kind of generalize, and I assume that this is a particular trope that is weaved in all the black community, but it can be critiqued. Maybe it's not, but it's pretty predominant. So you're right. I don't think we can ever say that the black community or African Americans all, but there's something, I think there's been research enough to say that there's certain tropes that are very prominent.
Okay. I did so much research in Appalachian literacies and Appalachian vernacular and how that functions for first generation college students, because those were the college students I worked with first. And so I was seeing similarities between his value of community into the space of the Appalachian community, because I have that value and that connection, and I was taught that I should run from it, but I didn't necessarily do that.
I was taught I should embrace it, but I refused.
until I got here, that was what my research focused on.
Important to him than it's ever been to me. I was running from a community. I didn't want to associate with the community in which I grew up. It didn't fit with the academic community, so I was ready to leave that community behind.
A universal kumbaya we, right?
Oh, I want to take back universal, because kumbaya is not at all right.
Something in the fate, even with his work and with what you guys were saying, it seemed like it was like a shot of espresso. It's just like, whoo.
Perhaps that's what the upswing that you're feeling is that transition into either another piece of this conversation or another voice within the conversation.
And I think he's admitting that he's operating under privilege, but maybe he's not quite as explicit about the privileges he's operating under. And it would be useful for us to think about that, just because it might help us understand maybe why parts of the project that he's representing, he says, have just gone unnoticed or not risen up to the mainstream.
I think the fade is what's most exciting about this project for me, is that
The
it's
fade as
fading up into something else, because on the last page he talks about pedagogically what this might look like as a way of valuing other practices and invoking multiple modes and multiple multimodalities as a way of bringing African American and Black multimodality into the classroom and into conversations, and not multimodality as one sterile practice.
The part of it is that some songs have an end and it's over. Other songs fade, and doesn't the fade assume that the song continues? But it just gets softer, and so therefore that is an invitation then to continue it on in something else.
We take a field trip to a club.
In Tallahassee.
We don't have that many options.
You know, we right. Have our Adam here because he loves to go to clubs. He just makes somebody open their club up.
That's a little different. I don't want. Let's exclude the professors. I don't want you to remember me.